thanks for joining us, guys, on this Design Truth episode. I don't know what number it is. You just said 40, Navpreet. So this could be 41, to be honest. I can't even remember. 41, yeah. Nice note taking. It's been a while, Win, isn't it? It's been a while.
Been a long time.
Yeah, you're looking in much better shape than when we did the last recording, and I probably put a stone on. So it's that's what's been going on in our lives. But it's a bit of a different one today, and we've got not one guest but three. So you're going to hear three different voices, or see three different people on your screens if you're watching the video of this. And it's because we've done something a bit different, and we've gone to a school, and we want to talk about kind of what that means. And Win will step in and give you a more polished overview of that. But we just want to kind of update everyone on Design Truth, what we've been up to for the last couple of months. And it's really exciting, this kind of evolution, Win, of like what we've been talking about now for what feels like an eternity.
Yeah, I think, it's started probably in those first few episodes about how everyone whinges about design education, how it should improve. And I think the statistics that have come out of Tony Ryan and Design Technology Association about the decline of GCSE enrollments, A-level enrollments, is massively concerning. And whether or not we wait for the powers that be to do something, whoever those powers that be, who are they? I don't know, to do something. It's like, well, let's do this from a ground up perspective. I think Design Truth is really well placed for doing that. I think at the Bristol Design Truth event, you could tell just from the chats we were having there was a big push for people to get together and do something about it. And I guess if you don't mind, but I'll just give you a bit of a kind of how we got to where we got to in terms of getting to the school. The school visit, which was a couple of weeks back. So
should we introduce our three guests first?
What do you reckon? Let's do that.
So the first bit of editing's already happened there, and you didn't even notice that, and that's how it will flow for the next 45 minutes or so. But we've got three guests, so let's introduce them, or let them introduce themselves to the masses. Let's start with Hiten. He's still at work at 6:10. So start with you, shall we?
Hi, I'm Hiten. I'm design lead at a company called Entia. I used to work with Win. And so, I cover everything from kind of product to digital, and we've gone through a bit of change here, but working on medical devices.
And do you need anyone for your five-a-side still?
Yes, always recruiting for the five-a-side team. So if anybody fancies the game, give you a message.
Got that one out of the way. Calum, over to you.
Hi, I'm Calum. I'm a design graduate, currently doing a sort of internship initiative at New Territory, which is a small design studio in Islington, in the final stages of that. And I met Win and Brad sort of after New Designers at the Camden Head, I believe it was.
Nice, good.
I just started talking about this whole going back to school, inspiring kids with the gospel of industrial design.
Navpreet, over to you.
I'm Navpreet. I'm a freelance design engineer, FDD studio. The S is part of it. I'm working at like a sort of a studio where people hire out the desks, and it's like multi sort of disciplinary. So Tom just walked in. He makes guitars, pretty awesome guitars, and then you've got like someone that like a physician and a mathematician. So it's a cool place here.
Lovely for you guys to be here. Really, I've spoken to a few of you individually, so it's nice for you to all kind of be in one space, I guess. I thought it'd be really good to start with just kind of understanding a little bit more about why, a bit of classic kind of Simon Sinek of like, what was kind of your motivation for getting involved? And that moved nicely over to Win, giving a bit of context to what we actually did at Northview School over in Wembley. So what was the kind of the motivation, I guess, for joining us on this bit of a weird and wacky journey to a school in Wembley?
So I think basically it just comes down to inspiring kids with design and what the sort of career paths design can lead to, and also what design is in itself, which is, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's views, would be problem solving, and just getting it known, really, because I think it's quite a niche sort of industry. I think whenever anyone asks what you do and you say industrial designer, they generally have no idea what that is.
It's a great way to end the conversation, that's for sure, Callum.
I think, yeah, so I think getting it out there so these people know what it is, and from a young age, maybe increase their interest, so people do go into it, and also to help really diversify design as well, because it is very homogenous at the moment. I think 95% now.
Yeah, did you have anything when you was at school? Can you remember people going into your primary school or secondary school, or?
No, not for design. I think most that people came in to do was like anti-bullying stuff, but
Nice.
nothing to do with industrial design.
Fair enough. Well, we can change that, can't we, for this next generation coming through. Hiten, Navpreet, what were your kind of experiences like when you were at school?
I guess school was like good. I'd say I went to like an old technology college. I think they've become academies now, but they were quite driven in terms of design and technology. But you were never quite taught that there's like a pathway you could follow until somebody engaged with that. So I think it very much was dependent on who was teaching you. And I think it was only when I got to like 15, 16 and somebody went, oh, there's this thing you could do that kind of combines art and some of the like more making things you like, and the math thing, maybe some of the math subjects, depending on what you kind of want to do. And this is a career path. So like, yeah, I think I was quite lucky in terms of the facilities we had. I think it's quite interesting that you need to team that with the right people to get you there. So I think like teaching is also quite important in that kind of concept of like getting people into industrial design.
Yeah.
I guess to your question before, why I wanted to do it was because I think thinking way back when, I had someone that kind of inspired me to go on that journey, and being able to do that with someone else is probably quite inspirational. And also, I guess, yeah, the diversity thing is like, I've been probably knocking around the industry for like 7 or 8 years now, and it's not often you meet people that are, I guess, different as you go around.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things, isn't it, where we can kind of cheer from the sidelines and go, this is a problem, or we can actually roll our sleeves up and try and do something about it. And I think that's kind of where we're at, where I feel like as an industry, we've been cheering on the sidelines for a bit too long, and now it's actually time that we do something.
Yeah.
And so it's really great that all three of you took the time to do this. What about yourself, Navpreet, as well? What were your kind of experiences like at school?
At school, I did electronics for GCSE. I was one of 2 girls in the class. My teacher loved me. Like it was awesome. I've got younger siblings, three younger siblings, and every parents' evening he'd always like show off my work. And then like going into 6th form, I failed my first year, but I didn't fail DT though. So DT was my best subject. And then like after going into year 12 again, year 13 again, I'd spend lunch times would turn in the workshop, hanging out with the teachers, then seeing what they'd done. And it was cool, like like just the teachers were pretty awesome.
Was DT one of the main mechanisms, I suppose, for you establishing it as a career, and just was DT that thing that made you go, there's this thing called industrial design? Like, was you interested in DT at an early age, is what I'm trying to say?
At an early age, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. During GCSEs, I went to a careers fair and I saw like chemical engineering. I was like, oh, that's really great, that's cool. I didn't know what product design was, or like industrial design was. And then only when like looking into like universities and courses, I found like D&T and chemical engineering, didn't know which one to pick. And I remember talking to like one of my 6th form advisors, and he was like, what do you want to do with DT? I was like, yeah, I want to upcycle stuff and I want to make some stuff. And it was through that, like he yeah, he was quite supportive through that. Otherwise, yeah, it was always just something to do with engineering and design, really.
Yeah.
I wasn't really aware of like industrial design and product design for a long time.
Yeah. Same for you two guys as well, was it? Or
I think in school through GCSE, I was quite fortunate to have a pretty good teacher. Shout out to Mr. Ackers, who was a Loughborough graduate as well. And he was a designer, more so in the kind of furniture and like lighting design. But he was great, really like encouraged us to sort of get into design. And then in sixth form, he was also my teacher, and he even like took us to sort of design studios. But again, it was more in the sense of furniture and lighting sort of design. So I didn't really know how broad industrial design was, and I wouldn't really say problem solving was sort of what we were kind of taught. It was more so like just making kind of really nicely crafted like chairs and stuff like that. And then as with Navpreet, going to like these fairs and like seeing what these universities had to offer, and then going into university, that's when I sort of discovered how broad industrial design is, and like the many different sort of industries that are within that, not just chairs, but also like consumer electronics, medical devices, even like UX UI, is really kind of important now to know as an industrial designer.
yeah, so the theme there seems to be around teaching. So like you were fortunate enough to be in an environment where you had a teacher that was maybe that way inclined or had a passion for it themselves, and so that kind of went down to the students. Whereas maybe you experienced at Northview that isn't necessarily the case in every school up and down the country, right?
Yeah, that's been kind of the overriding tale from every designer I think we maybe spoke to on this podcast, or people we've met at the events, is that when you kind of trail back to how you got into design and how you knew about it, the teacher is probably that main person who's opened your eyes to product design, industrial design, the world of design in general. And I think that then, when you do look at if there is a limiting enthusiasm and motivation of teachers, because those numbers of teachers have declined in half over the last 10 years, then we need to help those students find out about design, and I think that's hopefully where maybe we can help.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Northview School then. When you guys rocked up there, paint the picture for us.
Yeah, so the connection there, Design Technology Association, Tony Ryan, who was on the previous podcast, if we've got our numbers right.
Navpreet, can you confirm that? You were looking at your notes earlier.
Yes, I can confirm that was episode 40. We're on 41 right now.
Nice one.
And the Design Technology Association know that Design Truth are committed to try and do something, but it's like, how do we do this? And when we said to them, we'd love to encourage every designer to go into schools and to do something that will hopefully make people just provide a bit of awareness. We can't convince people to be industrial designers, but give awareness. And from that, then they said, well, listen, would you be interested in meeting up with this school, Northview Primary School in Wembley? And they say they have an after school or summer kind of kids club, which is run by a couple of staff and some volunteers. And it's in I guess you would classically call it low socioeconomic. They use a stronger word, which I don't particularly like, saying deprived on their website, which I don't like as a word. But essentially, it was an opportunity for us to go to a kids' summer club, which they're all playing basketball, and they were having water fights outside and all sorts of things, and to essentially just try and, I guess, blend a bit of learning in with the play that they were having during those summer days. So it just gave us an opportunity to go there. So we got in touch, made some connections, and arranged for us to go. I think of all the kids, there was a very high proportion of of non-white people. So we can put that perspective. It was from what we know the percentages are in the industry from a white male perspective. It was kind of going, great, maybe we can, show some awareness to people who maybe aren't aware of what design is. What we didn't want is one white guy going into a class full of non-white kids, and that's what it's looking like. I think it's important for us to show diversity, show career paths from a range of people from different backgrounds who aren't the classic industrial designer if you were to Google them from that point of view. So I think from that perspective, it was good for the students to meet us.
Yeah, and to see that it can be possible, I suppose. I think we talk about this at our Bristol event. If you're, it's the same for, I don't know, if you're a young kid living in a council estate in Blackpool, and you must kind of look at industrial design and go, this isn't for me. I'm not welcome here. I'm not. This is not an environment where I'm going to have a career, make a living. It's just not something that's for me, or that's the perception anyway, at least. And I think we as an industry have let that go on for a bit too long. And so, just the three of you here, what was your kind of going into it? What was you kind of expecting? I suppose. What was it? I doubt you teach very often. So, what was you think? What were your thoughts kind of going into it, and like, what did you expect?
Just to touch on like what Wim was saying before, though, like I think representation is super important.
Yeah.
To know that what you're able to do and what's not restricted. But in regards to like teaching and history of teaching, I've actually been a swim teacher for 3 years, I think, yeah. And I've like led STEM to STEAM workshops. So it's about like making children more aware and connected with their local environments and ecosystems, to sort of raise, the next generation of like activists and people that like children that care about the environment. And Callum helped me out with that. Going into it, because we were doing design's just fun, problem solving, looking like sketching, looking at people's needs. So I was quite excited, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on going? Do you think the student or the kids are going to be up for this? They're going to think this is boring. What do you think they were going to be invested in it, or just be a bit of a nuisance? Just trying to think of some of the kids I went to school with, and they probably would have prattled around a little bit, to be honest with you. But what were your kind of thoughts of that? Do you think they were going to be kind of invested in it, or just kind of be, oh God, who are these people? When are they going to leave?
Weirdly enough, I don't think I actually thought about that.
Yeah.
I just thought we're here to do a job and like just just show them what design is, and whether they like it or not, like it's however they interpret it. Yeah.
It's a nice answer, that. Yeah, that's a really nice answer. Hiten, what about you?
Having not been in a school since I probably left school, I forgot what schools were like. Like the kids were quite boisterous. They could see their friends playing out outside, and I forgot how shouty some of them can be, how loud they could be, how they don't really care about design in some sense as well. Like I think having been in a community of designers since I probably started university, all my friends are designers, you forget how that becomes important to you. But when you're in front of a class full of kids, they probably think you're some kind of mug trying to teach you something when they're in their school holidays.
I suppose if you were consistently to do that, though, then that relationship would start to form. It's like a bit of an anomaly, isn't it? Like one lesson out of the blue. But if that was ingrained in their early education throughout at different touch points, maybe that attitude would change a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you just learn things by just being in the room with them. And I forget that you need to engage with people at that age with something that they understand. And we initially went in with a lot of kind of slides and stuff about stuff, and they didn't. And it quickly dawned on me. I was like, we need to get through this a little bit quicker because they're getting bored very quickly, and we need to engage with something that they can relate to. So I think Win brought up an Xbox controller when he was talking about something. this one kid that I hadn't listened the whole time we were there. It was just like, that's an Xbox controller. I know how that works. This is where the microcontroller is. This is the accelerometer, for example. And I was just like, wow. It's like once you catch them, it's like, it's really interesting.
That was really interesting actually, because I remember he said it was the PlayStation 5 controller. We just put an image up on the screen and said, how was this different from before? And they clearly knew all those product features. So yes, they're consumers, but they were very, acute with, oh, it does this different from this. There's the grip's different, and then we kind of got a lot of their attention, which was actually quite beautiful to see. To be honest with you, it was quite touching that I put an image of. You can look at it on the. No, it wasn't Xbox. It wasn't a PlayStation. It wasn't Xbox. Xbox have created.
You're showing your age here, when you really are.
Commodore. They have an accessible kind of configurable joystick, which is basically you can have buttons of different size, a joystick. You can basically create your own joystick controller for the Xbox for people with different disabilities, so you can configure it to yourself and your physical abilities. As soon as we put that up on the screen, I could just tell that everyone else understood that there was like this kind of empathy throughout all the kids. And I think there was maybe 15 kids in the class, and you could tell that they were kind of going, oh God, yeah, what about those people those extreme users, those people that we tend to forget a lot of the time in design? Who cares about them and who thinks about them? And I think that really brought it home. And we could talk about the exercise a little bit later on we did with them, but you could just tell immediately that there was, the kids cared, the kids, which I think is a really important thing in design, caring about people. And then they obviously were very clued up about product features, just like Hiten was saying, in the various technologies.
How important is that relatability, right, in terms of, to anyone that's maybe listening to this and go, I want to get back in touch with my school, or there's a group of you in the studio having a chat now going, should we go back into our schools? How important is the fact that you talk about things that are relatable to people of that age, right, to keep that interest there? And is that part of sometimes the problem with industrial design, is that you Google it and the images you get, I don't know, fancy bits of furniture or lighting? I'm thinking, I did not care about that stuff when I was 12 years of age. Is that part of thinking as well going forward? Is that it needs to be fresh, it needs to be relevant to the time?
Yeah, definitely. We need to stop showing people Philippe Stark's juicer as like an example of industrial design, and like engage with people in something they understand and can have in their lives and relate to.
Yeah, I think just showing the kids stuff that they just know and they've used, like for example, I think it was, I'm going to keep going back and forth on what it was. I'm pretty sure there was a PS5 controller, and the kid knew all of like the special features of it, like the new like rumble and like tactile feedback that they've put into it. And then there was the Xbox accessible controller as well, which we used to show the sort of like, what if someone that hasn't got such great dexterity, how could they use this? And I think I think showing the kids stuff that they use, maybe even on like a daily basis, like a PlayStation controller, or like an iPhone or something like that, that's the best way to sort of engage them, because they can relate to that, and they also feel that maybe they could potentially have designed something like that, because I'm sure when they use it, they might think, how could this be better? Which I think is a really great mindset for any designer to have, is really just like, why is this designed the way it is?
Yeah, and you've got all of you. Have you got any other examples of what good looks like in that sense? With, I don't know, Air Jordans, for example. What are the things? I'm showing my age here. What are the things that's going to get a 12, 13-year-old excited? Are there any other products? Not just gaming controllers, right? There must be other things that are going to get people interested.
So I helped out with Smash Fest. They tried to like get children involved with like STEAM subjects: science, technology, engineering, arts, maths. And we were part of the Let's Breathe Together event at the Horniman Museum, and we were doing like a wildfire like event, well, workshops where we got the children to do some acting and imagine what would happen if there was a wildfire in their local area. And through that, it was really interesting because there's different ways of sort of interpreting and understanding how things could happen. And then through that, we were like, okay, how could we prevent it from happening? And how could, like, if there was a wildfire, how could we like contain it? And the children were like, oh, we could maybe have water coming out of lampposts, and like they were coming up with really interesting ideas. And I think making it relatable, so not just products itself, like actual problems that we're going to be facing in the world coming forward. My dad always says, you know, hard times are coming. So like, you know, the environment, sustainability, the sweatshop labor, stuff like that, things that actually where people are suffering and will be suffering, try to get them caring and passionate about those kind of things.
Yeah, watched a beautiful advert. I think it was Samsung win. I think I tagged you in it, and it was basically just they went to like 5-year-olds and said, I don't know, climate's on its arse, can you help us, basically? And there were just kind of these wonderful kind of solutions, a bit wacky, and you kind of think that just gets knocked out of them as they get older, right? That kind of creativity, imagination. I suppose it's a little bit trying to protect that a little bit as well, instead of, like, as you say, like problems, wildfires, but how do we protect that kind of a child just being a bit creative and just imagining things? And it doesn't matter if it's not a very good idea, but them to be actually able to express it. I doubt they get that in other subjects. They probably just almost get knocked out of them, I guess. Win, I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, I think we all know it, right? I mean, you know, everyone used to love drawing and sketching and painting and all sorts of things when they're about 3-4 years old, and then as soon as you get to about 8-9, there's like, unless you can paint, you know, a photorealistic draw screen in a photorealistic way, then therefore it's a bad drawing, and then people just feel that they can't draw, and then that's just that immediate sign of just, you know, stop being creative, or unless you're doing things accurately, then it's, you know, but there's I think that we all know that's the fact, and I think there needs to be a means to people, not necessarily about the visualization of it, but actually just being imaginative, you know. And you know, I think on that post you tagged me in, like, well, we have a subject called history, which we're forever looking backwards. Why is there no subject called futures, where you just look forwards, right? And imagine all those kids who, with all that imagination, you could put in efforts into a subject called futures, and it could be a personal future, your community future, the global future. Projects can be different things, but like, sometimes it's very obvious.
It's positive, right? It's a positive. History sometimes can feel a bit negative, right? I think about our history and some of the bad things that we've done, and it's futures is a positive thing. There's very few positive subjects. There's very few positive things actually going on in the world. Is anyone actually going to have a bit of a glass half full rather than a glass half empty thing all the time? But yeah, tell us a little bit about the exercise that you can.
So I think we like Hiten said, we'd you know, even though I've been lecturing, I forgot that, you know, university students and kids that are 10 years old are a whole different kettle of fish. So we removed some slides which were going to basically talk about our background. We removed that, and I can tell some fidgety kids. You know, I hope kids are fidgety. It's a good sign, right? And then we just went straight in there with an exercise. So we'd kind of knocked it up that morning, which was that I was going to pretend to be an elderly man with arthritis and potentially some visual impairments.
Did you play the role well? Did he play the role well? Did he do a good job?
It's nearly a reality now, isn't it?
No, but I told him I was 41, some people were quite shocked. But and I think what we did is, I think we did it on the train. We sent it between ourselves, which is basically let's just come up with a user journey with some moments in the user journey that that there may be some problems there, and basically we split this session in classic kind of double diamond, if you want to put it that way, of I'll talk about my day. The teams were in groups of 3, of which Calum, Navpreet and Hiten took groups of 5 or 6 kids each, and then essentially kind of note take and basically just took down some opportunities, and I tried to add some emotion into some of the problems that I had, like buttoning my shirt, well, I'm trying to look at the other ones, but yeah, brushing my teeth, getting money out of my wallet,
Showering.
holding my stick to go to the shop, doing my crossword. There was lots of little things like that. And then the idea then was between the teams was to pick out some particularly notable problems, ones they thought they would most high priority problems that maybe were going to help my life in the better ways. And the kids were, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I thought they were quite engaged in that, in terms of, you know, really wanting to help me, because I think they had that empathic slide of the kid with the disabled kid with the Xbox controller. They kind of felt, all right, we'd like to help this elderly man in his 40s. So from that perspective, then the groups then defined their briefs. They just picked out their problem, and then they thought some ideas. But yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe I think there was one particular little superstar that I could tell. You know, just tell sometimes immediately that there's some potential great design talent out there, and I think Hiten in particular on his table, or comes to Calvert, if I remember Hiten, I had one little superstar on his table that, yeah, if you want to talk about that little girl, because she was amazing.
Yeah, I think she was probably the youngest out of them and probably the smallest, but she was like really engaged with the design element, and she was talking about like connecting her Alexa to the shower, so the person could talk to the Alexa, get the shower running, and like she was like probably engaging at a level that was probably a lot higher than her, just by communicating in a way. And she started off quite shy and kind of looking around at what people thought, and I think as soon as she got out of her shell a bit, it was quite cool. You forget that like at that age how much what the other people around you think matters as well. So like you're kind of almost wanting to fit in, and as long as they're kind of the queen bee who was at the other table approved like this was okay, then everyone else engaged. It was really interesting.
But she was only 8 years old. I found out
Okay.
later.
Wow.
Yeah, she was 8 years old, and she was absolutely brilliant. You just kind of going, whoa, this is we need to get these kids into design studios earlier than we think.
Yeah, and hopefully that as she continues her education, that she comes across design again at one point or other, whether it is, otherwise it's not all in vain, but it's all like you kind of, I mean, my idea of what success looks like here is just one kid, we're at New Designers in 15 years time having a pint, and one kid comes up to us and goes, oh, you was that person that went to our school 10 years ago. That for me is what success looks like. Is I don't know if you guys have a different view of like what you want to get out of this.
That's essentially like the exact same thing that I said to Navpreet as he was leaving. Can you imagine in 15 years, one of the kids that we kind of taught, maybe inspired here today, is just exhibiting their work at New Designers, and like it just takes one. For me, I think, as you said earlier, what was your expectations going into it? And yeah, I thought, this is going to be a class of kids. I probably didn't expect how sort of energetic they were. I think you sort of forget how much energy they have. But yeah, just as long as we can inspire one person, I feel like at least we've done a decent job of this.
or on the flip side, inspired one designer to go into a school, which therefore creates that opportunity for someone else, right?
Yeah.
So even it doesn't necessarily need to be that direct thing of one kid in that classroom, but we're almost trying to change behavior really from an industry, trying to change mindset of that. There's Hiten touched upon it, but there's like a responsibility, like a social responsibility to do something. We all kind of acknowledge that our educational system's not in a great place, and doesn't need to get political or anything like that, but it is underfunded. Teachers are leaving the profession, all those kind of things, and we can sit on the sidelines and go, that's a problem, or we can at least try. Joe, we can at least try and do something about it, and it seems quite exciting that something's happened. I mean, we've gone to that school, and who knows what will spin off that. But Win, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I think what I'm conscious, obviously, we've got people listening to this podcast, is I think going into a A-level class of design and technology students, it's kind of pointless preaching to the converted, in my opinion. I think the people we need to hopefully create awareness of is those year the 7, 8s, 9s. Because if you remember when you're back in school, that's where you make decisions over whether or not you're going to carry on with D&T, for example. And so I would encourage that those ones that, if you're giving a presentation out to some school kids, yes, we did a workshop exercise, but there's no way I would have done that on my own without these 3 wonderful people. It just wouldn't have worked. I wouldn't be able to keep that attention. But I think a short, snappy, probably 20 minutes, half an hour, take some props with you, engage some kids that are year 7, 8, and 9. I think that's very doable with one person. But I think trying to do it to those people who just genuinely didn't even know about design, didn't even think about it as a career, those are the people we need to turn their heads.
And try to break away from that comfort blanket. There's a comfort blanket, isn't there, where you could go, well, I could just go to a nice school, nice little private school. Actually, how you want to break into new ground here. I think there's enough private school educated industrial designers out there for my liking. So I think we need to kind of break out of that and go into the schools that actually need a bit of help. And that is the schools that have just had their D&T funding cut. That's the school that's, got one D&T teacher maybe that's, I don't know, my D&T teacher was like the part-time maintenance guy. He wasn't even a teacher. Mr. Chiddle, whatever his name was, I can't even remember. And so it's like, try not to. I don't want people just to go into this and then stick to that comfort blanket of what they know. And just go to their old school with a nice look. Actually, we should be trying to be a bit more proactive about it and go, okay, what are the schools in my local area that will really need my time and my support, or the support of the people in the company that I work for, or whatever. And that's what I'm trying to get across at this point, is don't just stick to the comfort blanket of what go try and be a bit more proactive. And also, when what we've realized just from our time with the D&T association stuff is that not every school is going to be receptive to this. It's not going to be as straightforward as, hi, I'm here, when do I start? It's going to be a bit of a slog, isn't it, for some? It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, so I think obviously we've got great relationships, maybe they're all teachers or they know how to get into a school.
That's a good starting point, isn't it?
That is, yeah, exactly. But that is a hurdle that we are aware of. Saying that, the D&T Association do have a massive register of schools. So if there was a person out there who wants to go to a school and doesn't know how to get in there, we can help you and connect through the Design Technology Association to get into those schools. And from that, you never know what can happen. So obviously we're using this as a marketing awareness. I don't think we should put pressure on ourselves as an industry to kind of convince someone to do design and then track them and make sure that they become a designer. There's no KPIs here. Exercise. It's creating awareness. There's various schemes out there that, if the school was really keen, and for example, the employer of a particular designer out there was really keen, Design Technology Association have a thing called Blueprint 1000, which basically creates a more mid-term connection between the employer and the school, and then you could set briefs and do really exciting things like that. I guess our interest in this initial, wave is to kind of just get awareness out there and get people talking to kids in school. Yeah,
100%. And if you need more information about this kind of stuff, maybe at this point in time we've got a fancy new website. Who knows? We've been spending a lot of time, haven't we, on this new rebrand and everything. So by the time this goes live, there might be a new logo. There might not be. We don't even know, to be honest with you. at this moment in time. But there'll be some information on there about Wynn's put a bit of a guide together, haven't you, in terms of like things to consider and factor in. But one disclosure is that please don't see this as a design truth thing, right? We don't want this to be a thing where you just have to slap our logo on everything. This is more of a whilst we'll continue to do our little workshops or whatever, this is more of this is what we think is a good idea to improve the situation, and we want you to then take that on board. So either you go to your employer and say, part of any employment contract now, you've got kind of volunteering days where you can volunteer to your community or whatever. Why can't part of that be you go back into your local school to talk a little bit about design on behalf of your employer, right? So it's not on behalf of Design Truth, because I don't want to get sued. I need to be clear about this. I do not want to get sued. Not after that invoice has gone in for this rebrand win as well. I can't afford that after John's rates. But there we go. Is there anything you guys wanted just to say? The platform's here for you. Anything maybe we've not covered, or you just wanted to kind of add on or bolt on? Now's your time.
I guess the other thing I kind of wanted to get out of this is to kind of explain to people that design is a legitimate career path. I think coming from an Asian background, that people push you into medicine, engineering, accountancy, and it was almost comical for me to be going to design school. And there is a world out there, and I think communicating that to not students but the people that are kind of around them, influencing them as well, is going to be quite important.
Parents,
around, because not everyone is built to be a doctor or an accountant, and then people probably have different skills that they probably haven't appreciated that well, that could send them down a different pathway where they would flourish. And I think this is important for things like that as well.
And just to add on that, we've got the resources on the Design Truth website, but there's a salary guide, right? And I think a lot of backgrounds, people would see design as you don't get paid or don't get paid very well. If that's, a motivation of some families' backgrounds, and if you kind of go, well, actually, have you seen what you can earn in certain respects, then it's, there's no harm in mentioning that, because it's the truth, right? The information's there to be used to attract people if that's
and
that's an incentive.
Sometimes I do get a little bit annoyed sometimes when people look at industrial design and go, industrial designers are underpaid, or which is an argument for itself, but actually people aren't kind of in industrial design and like having to sign on. They're living a comfy life. They're living in London. Okay, it might be a bit of a house share to begin with, but there are lots of people in industrial design that do earn 40,000 a year, 50,000 a year, 60,000 a year. That's nothing you should screw your nose up at. This is like just because I'm not earning as much as what my friends are earning. So I think that's also part of the piece that does annoy me sometimes, is that you can still earn a pretty decent wage, considering. And it might not be the same as your digital cousins, but in UI UX, but you can still earn a decent living in industrial design in this country, and also globally, right? It's not just a profession where you can you're tied to the island of Shoreditch. There's people all over the world that do industrial design and are from this country as well. If you look at Johnny Ive as a good example, or any kind of American design team, or there's often someone from Britain that's flying the flag there. So just wanted to get that out there. Go on, Navpreet.
It's also, I think, like with my family, it was more like help someone, like do good in the world, and like having just having the sort of stigma behind it. Design's like a creative subject, an art subject. So I think just educating people what exactly it is really important as well.
So even if they don't become a designer at the end of this process, at least they'll understand a bit more about design. They might become a bit more better consumers. They might be a bit more conscious around certain decisions they make, products they buy. So if that D&T, I'm using this example, is taken away at an educational level, it does create a bit of a void, doesn't it, where people do need to still have it's not all about just creating industrial designers for a design agency. It's also just about creating hopefully better people, better consumers. So that's also part of the remit as well. I appreciate you can't track that, but that's also part of why you probably should be going back into schools and the kind of the part you can play around that.
Yeah, and I think D&T also like shows, takes some magic out of things, and it shows people how things are actually made and make them more aware of like the supply chains and everything. So 100% it could like open, because there's not enough transparency. Like, for example, closing the shops, you don't know how it's got to where it is today. And then you're sort of like disassociated with it and you just buy it because of own pleasure. So being more aware of that and yeah, just learning more about it is just really important.
Yeah. I think we definitely live in a very consumerist society, and just teaching kids about design and about sustainability and about solving problems, empathy, they're all just really important life skills, just as much as
for the 21st century, right? That's for you.
Yeah,
those are the life skills,
for the 21st century. Yeah, but those are just as important as being a decent sketcher or whatever. Like knowing, the right questions to ask. Why are things like this? How can these be improved? These are all valid questions. Industrial design is sort of almost like a gateway into that industry to help try and make a change.
Yeah, cool. Well, from myself, I just wanted to thank you guys again for taking your time to do it and to kind of flying the Design Tree flag a little bit. You did a great job, so thank you for that. If anyone is attending our event in London, you should see Hiten, Calum and Navpreet there. So maybe if you wanted to ask them some questions about their day, make sure they're not too intoxicated at the time, but do kind of show an interest. And whilst you guys, I've got you here, treat our event in London as like the Industrial Design Christmas do. So that's probably the best explanation I can
Turkey and
give
tinsel.
you. Yeah, turkey and tinsel. Well, I've been working by myself at home for too long now, Win. So I've decided that I'm not going to get a Christmas party unless I do something about it. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Callum, I know you was at the New Designers thing as well, so hopefully you can recommend our Design Tree socials when we do put them together. And then they're all sold out. So if you're actually looking for a ticket, I'm sorry, you can't actually get one. They sold out. They sold out.
Some on eBay. There's someone selling them on eBay.
I might sell. Yeah, I might have to sell them to for this rebrand. But no, so we sold like 100 and something 50 tickets inside a week. So thank you for people that have signed up. I'll see you all there. Maybe this episode will come out before that. Maybe it won't. We don't know. That's the exciting bit of this. And Win, is there anything from you to wrap it off? Or
no, that's it. Yeah, just thanks everybody for getting involved at fairly short notice and adapting to the needs of that session.